everyone, my name is Leslie, and today we're going to be going over independent versus dependent clauses. So let's just get right into it. Like I said, independent versus dependent clauses. So right off the bat, what I'll tell you guys that has helped me kind of distinguish between independent and dependent clauses is that I think of like an independent and a dependent person. So an independent person kind of does things on their own. They're standing, they're doing whatever they need to do, and it's kind of all on their own. They're being independent. And then dependent and a dependent person, they might need a little bit of help. Think of like a baby. A baby can't feed themselves, they can't change themselves, so they're dependent on that independent parent to step in and work with them to help them succeed. So that is pretty much why independent and dependent clauses exist. It's to help out one another. So like I said, an independent clause, it's a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. Very important that it contains both of those to express a complete thought. So an independent clause is essentially a complete sentence. So here I have an example. Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. So the subject here being Jim, and what did he do? What's the verb? Studied. So that makes sense. Next, we have dependent. So like I said before, dependent, it's not a finished thought. It's dependent on more information. Think of it like a baby, they need help. So a dependent clause, it's a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, but does not express a complete thought. A dependent clause cannot be a sentence. Often a dependent clause is marked by a dependent marker word. And that dependent marker word we're going to be going over in the next slide, but that's also very important, and it will also help you kind of distinguish between the two and whether or not it is a dependent clause. So here we have, when Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, dot. That isn't a complete sentence because we don't know what happened when he studied, and it's just incomplete. So that when is going to be a dependent marker word, because that having that when but not actually telling you when in the sentence is pretty much letting you know right off the bat, hey, that thought is incomplete. Dependent marker words. So a dependent marker word, it's a word added to the beginning of an independent clause that makes it into a dependent clause. So again, we're going back to our example. Jim, so if we go to the part here, let me get my pointer. So if we're ignoring when and we're ignoring this last part, this is a sentence we had before. Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. Okay, that was our independent clause. But we added that dependent marker word when, and it became a dependent minus this part. When Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz. But as I said before, when you added a dependent and an independent together, they form that final complete good sentence. So this is going to be your dependent, but look at that. Even though when they added the dependent marker word, they added, it was very noisy. It is a subject, and are very noisy. Or someone being very noisy could be the verb. But again, we're going back to studied being the main verb, so that helps it be more independent when all brought together. But it was very noisy is a sentence that could stand on its own. So some common dependent markers for you to maybe keep in mind are after, although, as if, because, before, even if, all of these, whenever, when, because those are things that you need to expand on. Those are things that you need to add upon. So just keep that in mind so that you're able to easily identify those. A coordinating conjunction. So the 7 coordinating conjunctions as used as connecting words at the beginning of an independent clause are and, but, for, or, nor, so, and yet. So these are going to be how you're going to connect them as well. These are going to be ways to connect them. When the second independent clause in a sentence begins with a coordinating conjunction, a comma is needed. So as you saw before, I'm not sure if I can, as you saw before, it also had a comma to bring those two together. So this is pretty much what it's letting you know. That here, Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, question mark, but it was hard to concentrate because of the noise. So that's what helps it be a coordinating conjunction. You couldn't just have this phrase and not have a comma. Another way that makes it really easy for me to know when to add a comma is when I'm reading it and I need to take a breath. So Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, breath, but it was hard to concentrate because of the noise. Otherwise, I'd be reading it like Jim studied in the sweet shop for his chemistry quiz, but it was hard to concentrate because of the noise. And that's a lot. So you need to make sure that you're adding the comma where you need to take the breath. And a really good way is this coordinating conjunction. You know automatically you need to add it before it. So connecting the two. Subordinating conjunctions, they are another kind of form of the coordinating conjunction. They allow the readers to construct complex sentences which have an independent clause and a subordinate, which is pretty much just dependent clause. So subordinating conjunctions means the same thing, bringing them together. Either clause can come first. So here we had our independent and then our dependent. And then here we had our dependent and then our independent. So this is pretty much just showing you an example of how you can have either one and it works. So the students acted differently whenever a substitute taught the class. So the students acted differently could definitely be an independent, but whenever, and then that's where you kind of have to think about it a little more and realize whenever a substitute taught the class, you're missing more. So that definitely can be an independent, dependent, but when they're together, they can form that subordinating conjunction and just work together really well. So whenever a substitute taught the class, comma, the students acted differently, that also works. So an incorrect way of saying this sentence is, I like this class, it is very interesting. Because you don't really need a comma there. These are two independent things. So correct could be, I like this class, period, it's very interesting. Or I like this class, semicolon, it's very interesting. I like this class and it is very interesting. I like this class because it is very interesting. Because it's very interesting, I like this class. So it's kind of just showing you different ways that you can do that. It is a common error to have two separate independent clauses, but just keep in mind that if it's a sentence that can stand on its own, you can usually leave it like that. Another really common error is because I forgot the exam was today. A lot of people like to start their sentences with because, and it doesn't really fit because because, no pun intended, because the reason that you use the word because is when you state something and are explaining it. So this is very important to me because, and after that because, I'm going to explain to you why it's very important to me. So that's just another way to know this is not good because that's funny to me to say that, but it's not good, it doesn't make sense, you need to expand on it. So correct could be, because I forgot the exam was today, I didn't study. Or I forgot the exam was today, and just take out the because, and that also works. So I know that sometimes these independent and dependent clauses are a little hard to understand, but you got this, you can do it. I promise that it's not as hard as you think, and if you think about them in terms of an independent person and maybe a baby, that can help you out a little more too. But hope that helped. I hope that you guys are able to learn some new things. Thank you, and see you in the next video.